Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Alright, without further ado, let us dive straight into the recap of Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy Part 20. Now, for those of you who may have forgotten, in the previous part, Makoto asked Rembrandt to teach him how to become a competent merchant so that he would not be easily taken advantage of by others. Rembrandt agreed, and the training began from the darkest side of the kingdom itself, namely the potential for a major revolution that is quietly looming. Now, let us continue to Part 20. The story begins in Tsige City, specifically inside Rembrandt's office. There, Rembrandt informs Makoto that a revolution capable of changing the structure of society is currently underway. He refers to the Aion Kingdom, where the seeds of rebellion against the royal family have begun to surface. However, what truly shocks Makoto is not only the issue itself, but also the timing. With a tone that almost feels too casual for such a heavy topic, Rembrandt estimates that the major outbreak will occur in the summer, which means it is less than half a month away. At this point, Makoto immediately realizes how dangerous the situation is. Aion is not a minor country. It is one of the 4 great powers that support the human alliance. If a nation of that scale falls into a civil war, while the war against the demon race is still ongoing, the consequences could be a massive disaster that shakes the balance of the world. Makoto briefly suspects that the demon race might be the mastermind behind this chaos, but Morris immediately denies it. According to him, this movement originates purely from humans, and the demon race is not involved at all. Even though Makoto views this as a very serious matter, Rembrandt instead lets out a small laugh when he sees Makoto's reaction. Hearing this only makes Makoto even more confused. Rembrandt then asks for Makoto's opinion about the upcoming rebellion. Makoto initially admits that he does not understand the political conditions of this world very well. However, from his own perspective, he believes that revolutions are sometimes necessary. That simple statement shocks both Rembrandt and Morris. In this world, the royal family is considered rulers appointed by the goddess, so the concept of revolution is seen as a severe criminal act. Makoto then realizes that there is a major cultural difference between himself and this world. He explains that in his own world, revolutions usually arise because the government has become too corrupt and no longer cares about its people. He apologizes for unintentionally downplaying something that is considered taboo by the people of this world. After the atmosphere becomes calmer again, Makoto gathers the courage to ask whether Rembrandt himself is involved in the coup attempt. Rembrandt brushes off the suspicion, at least for now, and describes the rebels as a group of fools acting recklessly. His answer makes Makoto feel slightly relieved, even though he still senses that something is being kept hidden. The conversation continues, and Rembrandt begins to explain the situation of the Aion Kingdom and Tsige City in greater detail. This is where a shocking fact is revealed. It turns out that the official ruler of Tsige City is currently a 6-year-old prince, one of the 4 princes of the Aion Kingdom. A city as prosperous and important as Tsige was given to a small child simply because the king did not know how to properly divide power among his many children. Rembrandt does not hesitate to call him a foolish king. Because the city's ruler is only a child, the actual administration of Tsige has been taken over by officials from the faction of the 4th prince. These officials have turned into parasites who exist only to squeeze out personal profit. They raise taxes however they like to enrich themselves, and the impact hits the city's economy hard. Rembrandt explains that from every bit of profit he earns through trade, 70% is taken as tax, a figure that is completely unreasonable, even for the most power-hungry nation. Because of the insane tax pressure, bribery practices become rampant. Many companies resort to such methods just to survive, even though they clearly violate the law. All of this chaos eventually cultivates deep resentment among Tsige's merchants toward the Aion Kingdom. And that collective resentment slowly transforms into fuel for the revolutionary movement. Rembrandt then explains that the Aion Kingdom is completely unaware of this revolutionary plan. If the kingdom knew, the movement would have already been crushed before it had any chance to grow. Fortunately, the conspiracy remains tightly concealed. Even though Rembrandt has extensive connections reaching high-ranking state officials, he has no intention whatsoever of reporting it. Indirectly, this confirms that Rembrandt truly wants the revolution to happen, which is why he allows the rebels to act freely according to their ambitions. Gradually, Rembrandt reveals his grand plan. He wants to turn Tsige city into an independent territory, a city that stands on its own without being bound to the Aion Kingdom anymore. At that moment, Makoto begins to understand something deeper. His presence and the Kuzunoha company have become one of the catalysts for change. Tsige now possesses strength and stability that it never had before, making the dream of independence, once impossible, now feel realistic. Rembrandt asks for Makoto's opinion once again. Without needing much time to think, Makoto says that he has already come to regard Tsige as his second homeland, because nearly his entire journey in this new world began from that city. He also expresses his willingness to help develop Tsige, although he needs to discuss it first with his subordinates. Upon hearing this answer, Rembrandt looks genuinely relieved. He admits that if Makoto had refused, he would still have allowed the revolution to proceed, but he would not have gone as far as forcing Tsige's independence. However, because Makoto supports the idea, Rembrandt becomes even more confident that this city can stand on its own. After that, Rembrandt takes advantage of the moment to teach Makoto an important lesson. As a future great merchant, Makoto must not remain a passive observer. He needs to directly observe the political dynamics and the process of independence from close range as part of an essential learning experience. Hearing this, Makoto immediately becomes visibly excited. Rembrandt and Morris even laugh at Makoto's innocent reaction, causing Makoto to blush in embarrassment. Not long after, Rembrandt adds that Tsige is not acting alone. There is an extraordinary external force supporting this independence. With a mysterious smile, he signals Morris to open the door, and the moment the door opens, Makoto's world seems to stop spinning. A woman enters with graceful steps and bows politely. It is Sairitz, the Empress of the Lorel Union, a nation that worships the water spirit and submits to the goddess. Her mere presence is enough to freeze Makoto in place. How could an empress who is so closely connected to the temple come to a place that is planning an action culturally considered taboo, especially one related to revolution? But the surprises do not stop there. After her, several other groups enter as well. Some are familiar faces from Tsige, while others are strangers who appear to be important figures. In an instant, Rembrandt's office transforms into the center of a high-level conspiracy. Rembrandt opens the meeting casually, as if he is merely inviting everyone to an ordinary dinner. However, for Makoto, this feels like a disaster disguised as an official meeting. He only wants to learn the basics of business, yet he is suddenly thrown into a conference room filled with the most influential figures in Tsige. The situation is too big, too serious, and far too fast. In his heart, Makoto desperately wants to run away to Asura right then and there. The discussion session proceeds intensely, filled with topics that make Makoto's head throb. He tries to take notes on the profile of each individual, but the longer he writes, the more he feels as if he is sitting through an advanced-level political examination. The meeting eventually ends without any clear agreement, leaving Makoto more exhausted than he would be after a battle. After everything is finished, Makoto decides to calm his mind. He returns to the Kuzunoha shop, located within Rembrandt's company complex. Upon arriving, he asks the staff about the sales condition of the Tsige branch. Gorgon's report about a surge in customers and the need to add more craftsmen makes Makoto realize that Tsige's growth is also driving his own business to expand rapidly. He even begins to consider hiring human employees. Although he feels more comfortable working with demi-human staff from Asura, he remembers Rembrandt's advice that having human employees might be necessary, even if they are only for appearance. Long story short, that night in Asura after dinner, Makoto gathers with his subordinates once again. Shiki delivers a report about the Million and Aion companies, two major companies from Tsige. Makoto has already met their leaders during the secret meeting at Rembrandt's place. He acknowledges that both of them have outstanding reputations. Fortunately, they do not compete directly with the Kuzunoha company because each operates in a different field. When the name Elior Company is mentioned, Tomoe looks as if she remembers something vaguely. She mentions that she has dealt with that company before when purchasing land on a previous occasion. Hearing that, Makoto suddenly recalls that the Elior Company once offered him an empty plot of land, located right next to the undeveloped Kuzunoha property. The offer feels far too coincidental, making Makoto suspect that they might have intentionally left the land vacant just to lure his interest. Moreover, the Aleor company is also involved in the large-scale project to build the outer city walls, a project that requires an enormous amount of funding. Makoto worries that the land price they offer might be inflated to an unreasonable level to cover the construction costs. Feeling that this could potentially become a merchant's trap, Makoto entrusts Tomoe and Shiki with checking the land's price and condition. He does not want the Kuzunoha company to suddenly become a cash cow for profit-hungry Tsige businessmen. The discussion then circles back to the development of business in Tsige, the revolutionary plans, and the grand dream of making the city independent. In the middle of that discussion, Tamaki, who has only recently become Makoto's subordinate, begins to show her sharp intellect. Despite never having left Asura, Tamaki questions the true motives of the Lorel Union. She senses that something does not feel right. Is Lorel truly helping Tsige purely out of gratitude for the Purple Cloud incident? Or is there a hidden objective behind this move, such as aiming to claim Tsige's land after the city breaks away from Aion? Makoto explains that Sairitz claims it is an act of repayment, but even he is beginning to sense that Lorel's assistance might carry its own risks. Hearing this, Tamaki becomes even more convinced that there is a hidden agenda. She admits that she wants to be useful to Makoto, which is why she always analyzes every situation in depth. However, precisely because of that, Tomoe begins to feel that her position is being threatened. Usually, Tomoe is the one who serves as Makoto's main analyst, and now Tamaki seems to be taking that role away from her. A small tension emerges as the two exchange smiles that appear polite on the surface but are filled with pressure. Seeing the atmosphere starting to heat up, Makoto quickly steps in to mediate. He reminds them that the plan for Tsige's independence is still far from complete, and many details have yet to be revealed. The most important thing right now is to gather additional information, especially regarding how Tsige will defend itself after it is no longer under Aion's protection. After a long discussion, the atmosphere finally calms down. It is at that moment that Tomoe brings up an old plan, the long-delayed journey to Lorel. With a tone full of confidence, Tomoe declares that she is the most suitable person to accompany Makoto to Lorel, especially since Lorel's culture is similar to that of Japan. Naturally, Mio is immediately provoked. She strongly protests, pointing out that she has been the one who has traveled with Makoto most often until now. To her, Tomoe is playing dirty and making excuses just so she can spend time alone with her master. The argument erupts instantly, with the two of them trading heated words while radiating their sense of possessiveness. Meanwhile, Makoto can only stare at the ceiling in resignation, watching his two subordinates argue simply because they want to accompany him. Shiki and Tamaki choose to remain spectators, enjoying the show without getting involved. So, that is the recap of Part 20 from Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy.